Hi, Pedro. My name is Alfonso Alvarez. I own a company called Servicios Aduanales iLink, which also has two companies associated with. It's Servicios Logísticos ILK and iLink Logistics LLC, which all these companies would do is provide an integral service for customs and logistics services for companies located along the U.S.-Mexico border. My company is located in Nogales, Arizona, which is right in the border with Nogales, Sonora, Mexico.
Great. So why Mexico is nowadays the eldorado for the mining sector, especially iron ore and manganese?
Mainly because the Chinese are trying to expand their market, their suppliers. As we all know, Australia is the biggest suppliers of iron ore for the Chinese, along with Brazil. So they're turning their eyes to Mexico because Mexico has a lot of the small miners in Mexico have found out that they have the mineral deposits on their properties. So they're trying to exploit that part of it.
Because Mexico is a big exporter of several mining products, but like silver and gold and others. But now they are working specifically with manganese and iron ore. These kind of minerals in Mexico are less expensive. What's the secret?
The secret is that the bigger companies, the bigger mining companies here in Mexico are focused on the minerals that they have been exploiting for the past 40 to 50 years. So what the smaller miners are trying to do now is they're trying to take advantage before the bigger miners start to buy them, start buying all of the smaller miners out. So right now, their focus is not on the iron ore or the manganese. We actually contacted one of the biggest mining companies here in Mexico, and they said that they weren't interested in exporting them the iron ore because all of the iron ore that they pull out is for their own consumption.
Okay, so they have internal and external markets as in Brazil.
Exactly.
Good. But could you describe the sector, the iron ore, where are they and how far they are from the ports?
In Mexico, there's iron ore in different parts of Mexico, but the biggest deposits are located within the middle part of Mexico, which is in the states of Jalisco, Puebla, and Michoacan. Jalisco and Michoacan are located right along the coast. So they're the distance from the mines to the port, to the main ports, which are in Manzanillo and in Lázaro Cárdenas, Michoacán. It's 200 to 300 kilometers. But the ones that are that are located in the middle part of Mexico in Puebla are like 700 to 800 kilometers away, which makes the freight very expensive to move from that part to the port.
But the main ports, the manganese and iron ore ports, capable of export this kind of minerals are in the Pacific. And if they are in the Pacific, they have a cheaper transportation to China. Do you agree with me?
Yes, we do, because being in the Pacific, Manzanillo and Lázaro Cárdenas are the main gates to export to China because for geographical reasons mainly. Okay. And both ports, if you look at the numbers, at the export numbers on the exports of minerals, by 2019 they were exporting close to 20 million tons of minerals in iron ore, manganese, and coal, and all of those. So they have more than enough capacity to meet the demand that the industry requires.
Great. And how are the miners in Mexico? Do they have money to export, to do the exportation and the transportation and the shipment, or they need some technical and finance help?
Right now, the miners are requiring more than technical, they're requiring financial help, because some of these miners are really small, or some people that are not dedicated to mining, and just that they found out that their property has a big deposit of manganese or iron ore. So trying to take advantage of this market where the iron ore is in high demand, they're trying to go into business, but being the exploitation of the product and the shipping of it being so expensive, most of them, if not all of them, require financial help to get things done.
Okay. Do they have support from the government?
Not really. Right now, this government hasn't placed their eye or their attention into the smaller miners in the sector, and I think they're missing out on an opportunity of increasing all of the mining exportation and the resources and the job creation and all of that goes along to the mining sector, because they're not focusing on the smaller miners. Their attention is on the bigger miners, the ones that provide the thousands of jobs, but they're not focusing on the smaller ones.
Can you describe how do you finance a CIF operation with manganese nowadays in Mexico? You go to the bank, how much the bank charges for it, and more than that, which kind of collateral they are asking for?
Collateral here in Mexico, the main one is property. Like we tried to be using the letters of credit as collateral, but a lot of companies took advantage of that and started cashing those letters of credit without actually shipping the product. So the banks are not using LCs as collateral anymore. So the only collateral that the bank is going to accept now is that you have to put a big piece of property against it.
And if they do that, they have to perform the operation and not steal the money.
Exactly, okay. Because you're putting collateral, you're putting your property as collateral. You would be shooting yourself in the foot if you don't meet the expectations that you signed on the contract.
Okay, and normally you ask for SBLC or just the DLC?
Or just the DLC for now. It has to be transferable, but it's just the DLC. It's fine for now.
Okay, can you show the SBLC or the DLC as to the bank as collateral?
No, it only works. It helps as proof of income, but the DLC won't work as collateral.
Okay, so how far is China from the Pacific part of the Mexico? How many days the material arrive in China normally?
Normally, it's between 27 and 30 days.
30 days, much less than Brazil.
Yes, because Brazil, you have to go through the Panama Canal, or you have to go the longer route, which takes up about like 45 days.
Yeah, but from these ports, you go direct to China or to Tianjin or Guangzhou. How is the way?
It's direct, because when we are contracting the bulk shipping vessels, we usually are contracted to go direct to port. When we have shipped with containers, when a customer asks for a sample, that the sample is like 20, 30 containers, we have to do the commercial shipping vessels, the ones that have multiple stops. But on those, from 27 to 30 days, the most that we can get is like 35 to 37 days. But it's still way less than going from Brazil.
Nowadays, how much is the container in Mexico from these ports to China?
Like just the container, it's about something about like $1,200 to $1,300, and that's including the insurance of the merchandise.
Interesting. So, and have you been successful in these operations? What's the main challenge of these operations?
The main challenge to be able to close a deal like this one is the miner having the financing to be able to fund the operation, because sometimes we have the customer, we have the miner, we have the vessel, we have everything in place. But what proves the biggest roadblock is that the miner doesn't have the funds to either extract the product or move the product from the mine to the port. And it's when that's when we come in and try to help them to get financing, just to be able to meet the demand that they contracted.
Okay, do you arrange the money with your company or with the mining company?
No, with the mining company. We help out. We contact the financial institutions. We make the contact with them, and we introduce the miners to them. We even help them out with the initial paperwork. But there's a point where, since we're not the party involved, we just we step aside because after one point the bank says, okay, you're not the interested party. It's time for me to talk directly to the miner.
Interesting. So I've heard that you have a big problem in Mexico with the drug dealers. How do you deal with this kind of problem in Mexico?
The only way that we can deal with it is by paying the fee that the cartel required to the miner. If you don't cooperate, if you don't pay up the fee that they're asking for each ton, they won't let you operate. So there's no other way around it. Like, there's no workaround. If they ask for any amount of dollars per ton, it's that amount has to be paid for. And once an offer is presented to a customer, by example, a Chinese customer, he has to know that part of it is part that is paid to the cartels.
Interesting. So you live in the border of Mexico and United States. You are a Mexican American, and you have companies in both sides of the border. What's the advantages and what are the problems with this kind of localization, specific localization as a trading or as a logistics company?
The advantages of being located right here at the border is because border towns here in Mexico are a huge center for maquilas. Maquilas are manufacturing companies from the US, China, France, Germany that come to the border, import their raw materials, and they export their finished product. So as a logistics and customs company, our main source of income comes from these kind of maquilas because it's something that has been going on since the 70s. And as a trading company, now that we go into this business, what it did provide us is with a lot of experience and a lot of know-how and knowledge of how to do customs and logistics work that in the end helps us out with the trading business.
In the mining sector, do you have this kind of problem with bureaucracy and red tape, any kind of barriers against exports?
Yes, because here in Mexico, the mining sector is very regulated. There are some products that you specifically need one kind of permit on top of the mining permit that you already have. Like iron ore is very limited to exportation. I mean, very limited. Not that it's a bad thing. That it's going to be the amount is going to be lowered. But if you don't have this permit, you're not going to be allowed to export the iron ore. So sometimes having the government provide you with a permit to export the iron ore proves very time consuming. Sometimes it can take months or even years to get that permit from the government. But
comparing with the price of the load, how much do you pay in taxes if you want to export manganese or iron ore or silver from Mexico to abroad?
Export-wise, Mexico doesn't. You don't pay taxes for exports. The main tariff you would have is the tariff imposed by the importing country. But exporting out of Mexico, there's no taxes involved.
Okay, but we have taxes for the aduana, for the logistics, for everything.
For the taxes for the services provided to get the export done, it's about 16%.
6%.
16.
16. So if you want to export $1,000, you pay $160 in taxes.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's basically for the services provided to get that export out. Like you're gonna pay, you'll pay 60% on the freight that moved the product from the mine to the port. You're gonna pay 60% on taxes on the services provided at the port, like the loading, the unloading, and like the shipping vessel, like the container, all that is a 16%. But once on the export paperwork, the government on exports won't charge you taxes.
But how, if you have the material in your mind and the Chinese buyer arrives there, I want to buy your material. In how many days you can have the manganese and the iron ore ready to load in the ship?
Usually for the manganese, there's always some stock around, but some of the miners can pull out between 1,000 to 5,000 tons per day. It all depends on the size of the crusher that they have to get the product ready. But like for now, we have a contract that we can that is going to be able to meet 25,000 tons a month without a problem. That like we can get those 25,000 each month without a problem.
Interesting. We know the big banks in China and how they send LC and SPLC. In Mexico, what are the main banks you work with?
In Mexico, there's the banks that are the most important ones. We have one that is called Banamex, which is the biggest national bank, Mexican bank. We also have BBVA, which is a Spanish bank. We have Santander, which is also a Spanish bank. And we have a couple of banks that are government owned, and some of them provide help or assistance to exporting companies, which is called Banco Mixed, which is a bank dedicated to helping importing and exporting companies. But to be able to access funds from that bank, sometimes it's very difficult. So it's they have better interest rates, but sometimes it's easier to get funding from the traditional banks than from that bank.
How much do they charge in average for an operation of 90 days?
Here, interest rates here in Mexico can go anywhere from 18 to 25, 30%. Like here, getting money, it's really high.
Okay, not comparing to Brazil. Anyway,
yeah.
If you have, what's the message you can send to the Chinese buyers that are looking for diversify their operations? What's the message you can send to them?
To turn their eye to Mexico. Here in Mexico, we have a lot of miners that are willing and have the attitude to become suppliers of the Chinese market. But since the mining sector here in Mexico for iron ore and manganese is barely starting, we have to be a little bit patient with them to be able to get their gears down and be able to start their own, make their companies grow big enough to be able to provide the product without the need of a bank funding or a prepayment or advance.
So how can you fix this problem of getting money from the banks?
Well, and with these specific miners that we have been working on, they have been putting their property as collateral, their personal property, because these miners are miners that are very enthusiastic about doing business with the Chinese, but they also understand that the money is not gonna come out of the ground. So we need the funding to come somewhere, and we tried doing like using the letter of credit as a proof of income. That didn't work. So what we did and what we convinced the miners to do is that they have to do, if they're willing to do the business, they have to be willing to take a risk. So they're gonna be putting their properties as collateral, and hopefully they only need a couple at like 3 to 4 shipments before they can start getting their own funds and not using the banking funds with the high interest rates.
Are the Chinese investing in Mexico? I mean, they are putting money in ex-work solutions for the miners, or what the Chinese buyers are doing in Brazil? Sorry, in Mexico.
Mainly just providing the buyers, because at first we asked for a prepayment or a deposit, but I understand the Chinese buyers that they want to build a trust first before they do a deposit or a prepayment. So for now, they're just saying, okay, we are willing to do business with you. We're willing to do to open the letter of credit for your miner, but that's about it. For the moment, they don't do any more than that. What we
Yeah.
were told that what we were told is that the best that they can do is once there's like 5 or 6 shipments done with many thousand tons of product shipped, and they determine that everything has been okay, they are willing to do pay the product once it's in the port, but not before. And they said,
FOB. Yeah.
an FOB.
Interesting. So the government of Mexico helps the industry, or they don't care about the industry? They want to help, they want to provide money or infrastructure. How is your relation with the sector and the government of Mexico?
For the mining industry, there's not a lot of interest in the government right now. We don't see them supporting the small miners with the funding to access to funding to be able to exploit their mines. Uh, Unfortunately, the only ones that have access to those kinds of resources from the government are the bigger mines, the ones that I said before, that have already built a relationship with the government. Like the smaller miners, the personal the personal mine that one has in a property, unfortunately, they don't have a lot of access to this funding. We already tried that route for the miners, and we didn't have success. So maybe if the government starts looking to the mines that we help getting them the product out, maybe they're going to put their attention to them once they see that those mines also have the access to the product. But for now, they're just focused on the big ones.
But what do they receive? The big ones receive what from the government? Money or
No, they receive like
tax breaks?
like tax breaks, fiscal support, all that kind of stuff. And they don't receive funding, but they do get a lot of access to tax breaks, fiscal support, and since they're so big, some of the infrastructure demands that they ask for are met, because it's easier to build a couple of roads for a mine that it's going to be exploited by a company that it's owned by a person that has like $2 billion, and build a road to access a mine by a person that barely knew that he had the iron ore in his property. So
Interesting. So do you think, in your opinion, Mexico is competitive in terms of mining or not?
it's going to start to get competitive. Right now, the main roadblock that we have to be very competitive is the access to funding for these small time miners. That access to funding is what it's preventing them to become a full force of exporting the iron ore, like in Australia, where they have already all the infrastructure set up. So I think if we help these miners get their feet on the ground and start building the infrastructure, maybe in 5 to 10 years, the iron ore from Mexico is going to be very competitive against the one from Brazil or the one from Australia.
Okay, what recommendation can you give to the Chinese buyers or Singapore buyers, international buyers in Mexico, in terms of iron ore and manganese or silver?
My main recommendation is that build trust with your miner, because sometimes these miners are they're very enthusiastic about doing the business, and they're very willing and have all the attitude to start doing the business with the Chinese. But without the trust between the miners and the buyers, we can't move forward, because maybe it's documentation, maybe it's a deposit, or maybe it's a lot of different things that prevent them from closing deals, because we have encountered some deals that we haven't been able to close because the buyer doesn't trust the miner. even though we have the proof that the mine exists, we have the samples from the mine, but sometimes the buyer doesn't trust the mine, and the deal falls off. So my main recommendation is that the product in Mexico is here, the mines are there to be able to exploit it, but the buyer has to trust the mine in order to do business.
Interesting. I've seen a lot of problems in terms of environmental certifications, the first one. And the second one is the difference between the SGS in Mexico or Brazil or Australia and the CIQ in China. There is a big difference. Sometimes you sell 42%, and when arrives of quality, and when it arrives in China is 39, 38. Do you think Mexico has the same problem with quality and with environmental certifications?
Environmental certifications, they're not as difficult to get them here in Mexico. There's just some paperwork that has to be done. Like the mines that we work with, they all have their certifications in place.
Cool.
And as far as the SGS, with one specific manganese mine that we are working on, we did 3 lab tests on their product on different dates, on different months, and we have been getting the approximate same range of results. So we are hopeful that once we make the shipment, we are going to be able to match what we got from the lab results with an SGS report and the CIQ in China.
Do these 3 times you get the certification is in the mine, transportation, and in the port? How do you do that? It's not very expensive?
No, what we have been doing is that we have been doing lab results, lab testing on the mine.
By yourself?
Well, yeah, it's independent.
Cool.
And it's independent because we have been trying to make when we're trying to close deals, sometimes the customer says, well, I need some kind we need a lab result that's an SGS, and we say an SGS to the mine is probably it's not as fast as would be a lab test that we can conduct. So we have an independent lab go to the mine and do the testing, and fortunately for the last 3 tests have been within the same range of results. That there's not a big disparity on the results, so we are confident that the product is going to meet the standard.
Cool. Alfonso, you are also investing, by a person, you investing in this sector, you paying for some transactions. How do you guarantee that you're going to get the money back to you, or the right return to your account, to your bank account?
Well, mainly has been by building the trust with the miners, because when we invest in in a mine, it's not a mine that we just heard about. It's a mine that we start building the trust, and it's something that has to be done within with a lot of meetings, talking, looking at paperwork, previous shipments, and all that kind of stuff that can prove that this mine has been shipping out product. Because sometimes we have encountered mines that they say they have the product, but what they only have is a geological report that says they have the ore in their property, but they have never exploited it. So what we try to do is, if we're going to invest in a mine, work with a mine, it has to be a mine that already has a report or previous shipments, and we're not investing into something that is going to be an assumption or a probability.
You invest $10 today in the Mexico mining sector. How much can you have in return in terms of percentage?
I think for every dollar that you invest, you can expect to receive like 100% return, because the mining business, the mining sector here in Mexico, positive or not, the labor is not really that expensive, unfortunately, for the mining worker. It's something that you have to live with, but the workforce for the mining business is not that expensive. So, and the mining and sectoring and pulling out the product is it's very cost effective. The only thing that raises the prices on the mining business is the freight from moving the product from the ports, from the mines to the ports. But once you make the sale to the Chinese buyers or whoever is the buyer, you can expect easily 100% return on that.
So it's very good. If we invest $1,000, you can receive $2,000 in 90 days.
Yes, it's very positive.
But very risky at the same time.
Yes, it presents a lot of risks, but the return it's so rewarding that it's a risk that we have been willing to make.
Interesting. So to make a long story short, investing in mining is very risky, and you can have 100% of return. The problem with the mining, you have to lower the risks. And what's the main thing you have to lower nowadays? What's the main risk of the Mexico mining industry?
The cost of the freight is what it's been fluctuating a lot, because 2 years ago it was probably 50% cheaper than what it is now to move the product from the mines to the ports, and we cannot. That's the biggest risk is to provide or sign a contract with a long-term contract with a Chinese buyer with a fixed price, and then have the freight come to you and say, okay, we're going to raise the prices for another 50%, and that messes up all of the pricing structure, and it's not something that you can go back with a buyer and say, hey, we gotta raise the prices on freight because you already have a contract.
You export a lot. Tell me about this crisis in the shipping industry with lack of vessels, lack of containers, lack of room in the vessels. How can you see that? Is going to be good someday, or is with the international trade is going to be worse and worse?
For now, it's been getting a little bit more difficult because we have been like the container situation here in Mexico. It's very scarce. Probably a year ago, a year and a half ago, we didn't have this situation, but for now, like we're trying to get for a shipment, we're trying to get 80 containers to ship out some product, and even getting those 80 containers has been turning difficult. So I think that the increased in demand, since China is so voracious in their demand for products or raw materials, that everybody is focusing all of their aim into the Chinese market, that they have been hoarding a lot of the shipping structure to the Chinese, and that's leaving us with a very difficult position to be able to ship our products, because sometimes we can't even schedule a vessel for 2 to 3 months, and sometimes that situation has been raising the prices, because like the price on a shipping vessel also has increased like 45% over the past 2 years. So
cool, interesting. So thank you very much for your interview. I appreciate your talk about the mining sector in Mexico. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome, Pedro, anytime.